The moment Kairo Bennett pushed open the executive office door, he froze. He had entered only to deliver a forgotten briefcase, expecting an empty office in the middle of a bright afternoon. Instead, he saw the company's powerful CEO, Seraphina Vale, struggling to change her blouse while a medical brace covered her waist. Her back was marked with deep purple bruises, and for the first time, the woman everyone feared looked completely vulnerable. Kairo immediately turned away, ashamed that he had seen something so private, but before he could leave, Seraphina noticed him standing there. Neither of them knew that this awkward accident would uncover a secret capable of changing both their lives forever. If you believe that kindness, compassion, and second chances can completely change a person's life, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Heartline Stories. You never know when one small act of kindness might become the reason someone finds hope again. Kairo had been working as a maintenance assistant in the company's downtown headquarters for almost 3 years. At 36, he was raising his 8-year-old son, Omari, alone. Every morning before sunrise, Kairo prepared his son's breakfast, packed his school bag, checked his homework, and walked him to the bus stop before rushing to work. His old apartment was small, the heating sometimes failed during winter, and his bank account rarely had enough money left at the end of the month. But Kairo never complained in front of Omari. He had promised his late wife that their son would always grow up believing that his father could overcome anything. Kairo carried that promise everywhere, even on the hardest days. At the company, however, Kairo was almost invisible. Executives walked past him without noticing, employees rarely remembered his name, and some people assumed that because he wore a maintenance uniform, he had nothing valuable to contribute. The one person nobody expected him to ever meet was Seraphina Vale, the young CEO whose photograph appeared on business magazines and whose decisions affected thousands of employees. She was known for being brilliant, demanding, and almost impossible to impress. Kairo had seen her only from a distance. That afternoon, Kairo was carrying a black bag of cleaning supplies when he noticed a leather briefcase sitting near the elevator. He recognized the initials on it and knew it belonged to Seraphina. He picked it up and walked toward her private office. He knocked once, but there was no answer. Believing she had stepped into the conference room, he opened the door slightly and entered. Then he accidentally witnessed the private moment that would change everything. Seraphina was struggling with her clothes because of a wide medical brace around her waist. Her back was covered with bruises that looked painful and recent. Kairo instantly looked down and stepped backward, apologizing repeatedly for entering without permission. Seraphina expected embarrassment, curiosity, or perhaps gossip. Instead, Kairo simply placed the briefcase on a nearby chair, kept his eyes away from her, and quietly walked toward the door. That small act surprised her more than she wanted to admit. She had spent months surrounded by people who pretended to care because they wanted something from her. Kairo wanted nothing. He did not ask what happened. He did not stare. He did not tell anyone. He simply respected her privacy. The next morning, Kairo arrived at work and discovered that his supervisor had called him into the office. A complaint had been filed against him for entering the CEO's office without permission. Kairo's heart sank. He explained what had happened, but the supervisor seemed unconvinced. Losing the job meant losing the apartment, and losing the apartment meant possibly losing custody stability for Omari. Kairo tried to remain calm, but when he imagined his son coming home to an empty apartment, his hands began to shake. Then Seraphina walked into the room. She had heard about the complaint. Instead of firing Kairo, she asked everyone to leave. She explained that he had entered accidentally while returning her briefcase and that she had no reason to believe he had behaved improperly. But she also noticed something else. Kairo looked exhausted. His shoes were worn out, his uniform had been repaired several times, and there was a faded photograph of a little boy tucked inside his employee badge holder. Seraphina began asking questions, and slowly she learned about Omari, the financial struggles, and the promise Kairo had made to his late wife. But Kairo also learned something about Seraphina. The bruises were not from an accident at work. She had been injured several weeks earlier during a private vehicle crash, and because she feared investors would use her condition against her, she had hidden the severity of her injuries. She had been attending meetings while secretly dealing with pain, refusing to let anyone see weakness. For the first time, Kairo understood why she seemed so cold. She was not heartless. She was terrified that if people saw her vulnerable, they would stop respecting her. Days passed, and an unexpected friendship began to grow. Seraphina started noticing Kairo's dedication, especially when she saw him working late and then rushing home because his son needed him. Kairo never treated her like a billionaire. He treated her like a human being. When she struggled to carry a box of documents, he helped without making her feel helpless. When she became frustrated during a difficult meeting, he reminded her through simple actions that asking for help was not the same as being weak. Then disaster struck. A major company project collapsed after someone inside the organization secretly leaked confidential information. Investors demanded answers, employees feared layoffs, and Seraphina was blamed publicly. Evidence appeared to point toward Kairo because his maintenance access card had been used near the records department on the night the information disappeared. Kairo was devastated. He knew how it looked, but he also knew he was innocent. The thought of losing his job again was frightening, yet what hurt most was that Seraphina might believe he had betrayed her. But Seraphina remembered something important. Kairo had never asked for money, favors, or recognition. She ordered a full investigation instead of accepting the accusations. Security footage eventually revealed the truth. Someone had copied Kairo's access credentials and used them to enter the restricted area. The real culprit was a senior executive who had been secretly selling company information to a competitor. Kairo was cleared. But Seraphina did something nobody expected. She offered Kairo a permanent position in the company's employee support division, where his experience with struggling workers could help create better programs for employees facing financial hardship. She also established a scholarship and emergency fund for employees' children, inspired by Omari and the sacrifices she had witnessed in Kairo's life. Months later, Kairo stood inside the same executive office where their strange story had begun. But this time, he was not carrying cleaning supplies. He was presenting a proposal that would help hundreds of working parents. Seraphina watched proudly as he spoke. Kairo realized that the accidental moment that once made him feel ashamed had actually opened a door he never knew existed. His life had not changed because he had met a billionaire. It changed because, in a world where people often judged others by appearance, two wounded human beings had chosen to see each other with dignity. And Omari's life changed too. He no longer watched his father struggle alone every night. He saw him come home tired but hopeful, carrying not just groceries, but the confidence of a man who finally believed his future could be bigger than his past. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who believes in kindness, and subscribe to Heartline Stories. Your support helps these emotional stories reach more people who may need a little hope today. Special request: before you leave, comment, "Kindness changes everything," if you believe one compassionate decision can completely change someone's life. Sometimes life-changing moments do not arrive with a warning. Sometimes they happen because a door opens at the wrong time, because someone sees a hidden struggle, or because one person chooses not to judge another. Kairo thought he had accidentally walked into the wrong room that afternoon. In reality, he had walked into the beginning of a completely different life. And Seraphina, the woman who believed strength meant hiding every wound, finally learned that true strength can also mean allowing someone to help you heal.